Thank you for joining us for this afternoon's public talk program for the Taiwan Collateral Event, Screen Melancholy, Li Yifan. To begin, please join me in welcoming Ms. Li Zhen Luo, Luo Lizhen Guanzhang, the director of the Taipei Fine Arts Museum, to deliver her remarks. Please, Guanzhang.
各位来宾、现场的朋友们，大家好，我是台北市立美术馆馆长骆丽珍。今天非常开心，大家能够来到这个艺术家与其策展人的一个座谈的现场。
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to Taiwan Collateral Events. I'm the director of Taipei Fine Arts Museums, and welcome to this artist talk between the artist and the curator.
威尼斯双年展的预展期间呢，整个岛就是一座艺术的迷宫，每天都有非常多的活动发生。那也非常感谢各位在这么多丰富的活动中选择来参加这一场的座谈。
During the Venice Biennale, the whole island is like a maze of art. So thank you for choosing us over all of these events.
今天的座谈，我们会以这一次的这个现场策展的思考，还有艺术家个人如何进入这个创作的实践。我们希望策展人跟艺术家可以直接的对谈，不只是谈作品如何做是什么，不只是谈论作品是什么，更能讨论作品跟展览如何生成。
In this artist talk, we'll invite the artist and the curator to talk about their curatorial process, and also as our artist to talk about his creative practices over the years. I hope that we can also talk about not just the work itself, but also how they create and how it becomes the work itself.
接下来我要很荣幸的介绍本次的策展人 Raphael Fonseca。Raphael 在某处。
Now, we would like to invite our curators, Raphael Fonseca, to the event. If he's not here yet, it's time to call him.
Raphael 他任职于丹佛博物馆，下一个月他也将就职他的新工作，成为葡萄牙 Cultural Guest 的视觉策展人。
Then Raphael is now the curators in the Denver Museum of Art, and starting from next month, he will also be starting his new positions in Portugal as the visual art curators in the Cultural Guest.
然后 Raphael 的策展策略实践非常有趣哈，他常常会将艺术史、还有虚构叙事、幽默还有批判思考交织在一起。那这一次这样的策展视角，也让狱卒的平面成为一场影像跟如何塑造我们认知世界方法的一个提问。
So Raphael, in his curatorial practice, often combines a creative perspective as well as humor, and this we also present and include this kind of perspective into this work, and that's how we try to see how the screen and also technologies influence our perceptions of the world.
那今天我们最重要的主角当然是我们的艺术家李一凡。
We also have our artist Li Yifan here with us on your right-hand side.
一凡呢，透过他的雕塑、录像，还有游戏引擎，以及数位叙事，长期探索科技跟人性之间的一个亲密而且又矛盾的关系。
In his works, he often used technology, sculptures, and interactive and game engines to create these relationships that talk about how humans and technology have this close, intimate, but also contradictory relationship.
这是他在蒲公这个过去曾经是监狱的一个场域，将这个影像转化成跟身体交织成为一个剧场。
And this Palazzo Prigioni, which is a former prison, it also creates this work that creates a theaters with body and technology.
刚才大家可能有坐在这个现场，很像人体碎片的一个雕塑上面，看到数位人偶的演出。那这其实是真实跟虚拟一个界限逐渐模糊的一个现场，也很像我们现在所身处的一个影像时代。
And some of you may have sit on those broken sculpture and broken pieces in the venues and also see the works. It talks about the line between real and virtual is now blurring. It is also how we experience technologies in screen today.
好，接下来我就不占用大家的时间，我们接下来邀请策展人跟艺术家来分享这次非常精彩的展览。
Without further ado, let's welcome our curators and artists.
Thank you, Director. 谢谢馆长。Now, please join me in welcoming the artist, Mr. Li Yifan, and the curator, Mr. Raphael Fonseca, for their talk of the artistic and curatorial concepts behind this project. Please, you have the floor.
Look, there are two seats here. If anyone want to sit very close to us, there are still 2 seats here. No one want to sit. You want to come, Carla? You coming? Okay. That's fine. Okay. How do we start? Should I start? I should start. Okay. First of all, thank you all for coming here in this very intense week of the opening of the Venice Biennial. Sorry, I'm totally overwhelmed, lots of people, so I don't know exactly how to start. But anyway, thank you so much for coming here. Thank you so much for the interest in our quick conversation about Screen Melancholy. As the director Lo said, my name is Raphael Fonseca. I'm from Brazil, I'm from Rio. Very happy to see some very usual Brazilian faces here in front. And also, before starting anything, I would like to say publicly, of course, thank you very much, IFAN, for this invitation. This came absolutely as a surprise. We can talk about the backstage. I think that's the idea of the conversation, talk about, how we met, how I was working together, how I was organizing Screen Melancholy. But I need to say publicly again, how much it has been amazing to work with you and how nice it is to have a collaboration with an artist and then realize during the process that we're not only working together, but we're becoming friends. So I'm really thankful for this, for real. I don't want to be too emotional, too Brazilian.
So hi, my name is Yifan. Yes, I'm from Taiwan, Taipei, and I'm a little bit nervous, so my English might be broken, and in that case, I think Jiawei will help me to translate. I'll switch back to my Mandarin mode, yes. So where should I start? I'm a visual artist working in video, and I've been making video for... Sorry, the sound was quite annoying. I always feel embarrassed to speak next to my work because my work is quite noisy and he talks a lot and I don't talk too much. And now he's singing. Okay, I'm sorry. Where am I? Okay, I've been making video for a long time. I just memorized maybe 20 years ago or even more than 20 years ago, I got my first PC and I was using Flash. Maybe some people didn't know this software is very ancient software, it's Flash 2.0 or something. And I created a really violent animation when I was a very young kid. Because I think for me, animation or video is something like a safe space. It has very isolated to the reality. So I'm able to, I have the right to make anything. That was what I'm thinking about. Yeah, but after 30 years passed, we start to realize the image in the world it's not actually fake and real. Sometimes the image is kind of real in certain part. Yeah, and the piece you're seeing now is a series I've been working on maybe more or less 5 or 6 years. During that time, because making animation, if someone knows how to make animation, making animation is a very tedious process. You have to do keyframe, which is, I hate it very much. It's very slow, or stop motion is also very slow. So during that time, I'm thinking about only one question, how can I make the image making into something more intuitive way? So that's why I started to develop my own image making toolkit inside game engine, and eventually became this digital puppy things, which you saw now. Yeah, and it's a very brief introduction how where my practice came from. Yes. Should we go
Yeah. You can play Oprah Winfrey. The first thing I would like to ask you, and I know you already explained to me many times, but I suppose lots of people here are seeing your work for the first time here in Venice, is more or less how it is the process of physically making the works. So in the sense of which tools do you use to generate these images, the thing with the VR and the joysticks. I went to a studio in Amsterdam because Yifan is still doing the Rijksacademy, that amazing school of visual arts in Amsterdam. There's a whole Rijksacademy mafia here also. Friends of him from his class and the previous one. But I was wondering if you could explain a bit, how it is this process of capturing your body and transforming that into a fragment of what we see over there.
Yeah, so like I would say like my studio is the most boring studio in Rice Academy, because like all the studio in Rice Academy, they have like sculpture, amazing tools, but all in my studio there are only computers, like a lot of computers, like computer desktop. Because I sit in front of computer like 8 hours a day, and the process of how I make video is quite funny, because actually I spend like maybe 17% of time actually like developing the tools, which is like almost zero creativity. It's like dealing with code, try to build my own personal toolkits. So it's like building, for me, it's like building a tool or a set for me to play with. So I think for me, it's kind of like different mindset. Like in the beginning, it's very rational, very like coding and think about the possibility how to make my own tool. And after I finish my tools, I start to play with this tool and to see how I can like generate image into a very intuitive way. So it's kind of like going back and forth, like in different mindset. Yeah, and in the beginning, this series, I try to do like motion capture. Like if you know like how to do motion capture, it's like using tracker, but due to a very limited budget, I couldn't get a very decent tracker. So the movement is always weird, like always hand shaking or flying. And so in the end, it became this kind of like puppetry. I was using VR headset and like manipulating my own body in a like different perspective.
Yeah, and then another thing I would like to ask also to start is a bit like, I know this it's tricky always to explain creative processes, but now and then early when we were giving an interview here, you use the same word, you say that your process is very intuitive. And of course, after working with you for more or less a year and comparing to other artists, I think it makes all sense to use this word. But I was wondering, especially if you could tell us how it is your process with writing. Because something, I mean, I'm supposing that, you know, everybody here, most of the people saw at least part of the video. It really calls my attention how you use text and how it also, in a certain way, the way how the puppet or the characters in your work, in these last works, how they deal with the audience has always this tutorial vibe. And you're also a professor, so anyway, so I was wondering, I mean, you give classes, right? But anyway, but I was wondering if you could like tell us how it is this writing process, you know?
Yeah, so I think most of my work I start with writing. I write a lot, like daily, but I never really publish or even share on this like internet. It's like very personal stuff. Like I write a lot. And sometimes the writing is very, very connected to like learning note. Because like I try to learn on internet and I take a lot of note like on my writing software. And I think in certain point I start to realize this kind of writing fragment of writing can be a story, and I start to like transform this writing into a script which I can perform. Because sometimes writing and script is quite different, so I have this kind of process, like transforming this writing into something verbal, something I can perform with the puppet. And the thing you mentioned about tutorial for me is quite important, because like for my career, I learned most of my skill, most of my technique on the YouTube channel, and I really enjoy this kind of vibe, like someone try to like teach you something in a very fast forward way. So I think that's why my video always have this kind of like tutorial vibe. And at the same time, I teach at university. Is like, but I'm not a professor, I'm like lecturer. Yeah, so it's sometimes quite funny because my work sometimes it teach, and sometimes in my class I exactly like repeating the same line of my work. So my students sometimes like really confused, like, am I performing or I'm really like teaching? Yeah, it's like a really funny moment for me. Yes.
And then another thing that I would love you to tell a bit more to everybody here is about, because you said now about your 6 last years of work and how, of course, you started using these tools to create works with this language. But I was wondering if you could tell everybody a bit of your previous work and also about your education. Because of course, you also didn't study it formally, moving image or cinema, right? So you could share like, what did you study and how your first works that also dealt with animation, you know, how do you see them in comparison to this one?
So I studied painting when I was in university, and for me it's almost like a very random decision because I like to draw, so I just pick a like art school and start learning painting, and it was a realistic painting school, and I'm not really into realistic painting during that time, so I kind of like spend most of my time in the library just watching films, and that's when I started to realize that maybe I want to like make films or something. Yeah, but I'm very like, how to say, interval person. I don't want to work with other people. Yeah, you know me, I'm always like working alone, and I think like film is like always has like this kind of big groups, you have to work with a lot of people, and eventually like animation is something like I can achieve by myself. So that's why I start to try to make animation. And the first piece I made is called like Walking on the Beach. It's a beach. It's a really random like stop motion I made in the beginning, but I still find like my practice is very connected to that piece. And after that, I shipped to like new media department, which I started making like some projection mapping of work. But then like I think I tried different media, but all the practice eventually is like relating to image making, like how artists can achieve image making. So it's always this kind of like meta narrative, like how can we make image by tools, and how it is possible for us to narrative something to image, to video.
Yeah, just sharing an anecdote, because I met Ifan by an accident. I was working at the Mercosur Biennial that happened last year in Porto Alegre, a city in the south of Brazil. Freud, this amazing Brazilian artist here, was also in the Biennial. Andrea, one of the creators of the Mercosur Biennial, she's here somewhere. I don't know, but she was there in the back. But anyway, over there, Juca, the designer, is there also. And then what happened, just to share, I mean, this thing with your practice, right? I was researching artists for the Biennial, then I saw the list of artists that were part of the last Taipei Biennial, not this one, the previous one in 2023, and I Googled Ifan's name. I saw his Instagram, I think, got absolutely crazy, and I saw some stuff on YouTube also. I don't remember if I found your email, if I dropped a message via Instagram, and then we had a studio visit. And in the studio visit, it was very funny because Ifan, he shared a portfolio, and the portfolio had only 2 videos. And when I saw his CV, it was like, this guy finished university like 10 years ago. And I was like, what happened between when you finished university and now? And then he sent me something via email, like, no, I mean, the stuff I did before, it was very different than this. Now I'm in this research. And I'm like, okay, but can you share with me the stuff you did before? And then he shared this list of links of many amazing works. They're all here in our book. We'll talk about it later. Don't fall. They had video mapping. They had this first work called Walking on a Beach, and it's really fascinating. And I hope one day, of course, Ifan, certainly he will have a show where he's able to mix the old work and the new stuff, because lots of elements are there. The importance of humor, the certain degree of violence, a certain nonsense in some situations. So, for example, Walking on a Beach is all stop motion made with props. But there are 3 narratives, and there are 3 moments, and in the end of each narrative there's a moment where the audience is supposed to choose A, B, or C, and I think in all the 3 narratives always a C option, if I'm not wrong. So anyway, the technology, how the image is made is very different than here, but existentially, I mean, you're interested in like humor, in questioning image, and creating broken narratives. It's in all of them. And also in the video mappings you did, because they were very complex. There were always a big like set design environment, and the video mapping over in these elements. So anyway, I'm only telling this because I think it's important to realize how, of course, how solid your research is and how we've been doing this for a long time, even though, of course, now you are in this new media moment, as you say. I would like to ask you now about your move to Europe, because what happened also is that you entered first in Rijksacademy, and then a few months later you got invited by the Taipei Fine Arts Museum to represent Taiwan. Taiwan #1, always. But I was wondering, since every country works in a different way, first, why did you decide to go to Rijksacademy? How's it going there also? And how was this process into representing Taiwan? How does it work in the Taipei Fine Arts Museum?
Yeah, so I think back in 2019, I did a residency in Netherlands in Oosterwijk. It's a ceramic residency, which seems really random for me. Yeah, and during that time, I visited the Open Studio of Rijksacademy, and I really enjoy the vibe and seeing all different artists from different countries to gather there and learn to each other. So I really put it in mind I want to apply one day, and I think I spent most of my time. I grew up in Taiwan, so for me spending 2 years in Rijksacademy is very important experience, knowing the different different cultural variety. Language is okay. Yeah, so it's definitely a very important process of my life. Yeah, and to do the Venice for me is also very I didn't expect. The former director just gave me a phone call. He didn't know I'm in Amsterdam, so give me a phone call 4 in the morning. So I was very sleepy and it feels really unrealistic. Yes, and in other hand, I think it's very good opportunity for me to rethink the relationship of my practice in Taiwan, because like I mentioned before, I'm very intuitive artist. Sometimes I don't think too much while I create, but I think this is a very treasure moment to think what is behind this intuitive manner, and what is the black humor came from, what is the desire and fear behind my practice. Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and then there's one thing that is always very specific about the participation of Taiwan in the Venice Biennial, the Visual Arts Biennial, the Architecture Biennial, that is the use of this space where you are, the Palazzo delle Prigioni, which is directly related to the Palazzo Ducale, and of course you have this bridge. To me it's always hard to say this word in English, but the Bridge of Sights, right, that is here, it's the place where it has this name, because it was a place where people used to see the sky and the city before coming here, and most of them dying here because the conditions here are awful. And then something, perhaps we can, to move to the exhibition already, start talking a bit, Ifan, is about how was the initial process of thinking about an exhibition for this space? Because this is the first time also, if I'm not wrong, that you have a work that's that site specific. And of course, I'm coming to the Venice Biennial in the last 6 editions. I saw many exhibitions here, and I think it's one of the first times where the artwork, deals quoting the space inside itself. So, when you got the phone call at 4 a.m., what were the first ideas that crossed your mind about how to respond to the space?
Yeah, I think for every single show I have, I always do I always model a space, exhibition space where I'm going to show. So the first thing I came here for the site visit is I document all the building, measurement all the building, and I build a digital, a virtual space in my computer to see how I'm gonna arrange my artwork. And after I built a venue, the idea came up why don't I just shoot the video inside the model, since I already have the environment. Yeah, so for me, I never have a chance to really do a site-specific work, and also, like, since the place is a prison, and like my work always has this vibe of like trapping, like the character was trapping somewhere. So I think having a site-specific work inside of this prison is like really match the vibe. So in the work, you can actually feel the character is always like trapping. You always like try to make an animation inside of this prison. And for me, it's quite funny because like I visited this site for 2 times. Like the first time I came, I modeled everything, and I spent a lot of time inside the space in my computer, like virtually. So I'm like very familiar with every detail. But after like 2 years, I come here again. I start to notice like all the tiny details. So actually quite different. So for me, it's like very weird experience. Like seems I know this place so much, but it still feels very alien or something. Yes. Also, funny thing is like because I work really fast. I model everything like really fast. So after I came here, I actually remodeled the venue a lot, like adding a lot of like details. I enjoy like, doing this kind of like tiny stuff.
Yeah, and then we came together here when this was September. Yeah, we came in September, and then of course, already in September, Ifan had this idea, but then there's something we discussed a lot online of not. I mean, since you have this whole space, since you have the amazing structure that Taipei Fine Arts Museum gave us, and I'm not saying because everybody's here, I mean, it's really true. It's a privilege to work with everybody from the Taipei Fine Arts Museum because you have a nice budget, you have structure, you have freedom, etc., etc. We were discussing how it was important to, since he works mostly with moving image, but try to do an exhibition where it was not only the moving image, that could have other elements. And also when we came here together, I remember coming up from the stairs and looking at the window and saying, there's an amazing space to put a video. Why don't we think about not only having a big thing inside, but also some stuff spread around? And then, of course, his whole process as an artist and mine as a creator started to think about these elements. But one idea that you had since the beginning was this amazing idea of having a space for the audience to sit. Because also it's a big problem in any biennial format. And sometimes I don't think all creators discuss this, but it's an issue to create a structure for people to spend time watching stuff, especially because that was the idea since the beginning, when the videos, they don't have a short length. And then I think I would love to, if you, could bring a bit how this idea of the fragmented body came, because I remember this was already in your first or second sketch, but I don't remember if we discussed properly. I know everything's very intuitive, but I'm a Capricorn, sorry, so things sometimes, we need to talk directly. How this idea of having this fragmented body and transforming them in seats came to you?
Yeah, I think since beginning, I think about like making a long video, and one thing is showing a long video in a museum or gallery is like people need seats because they need to feel comfortable. So I think in the beginning I'm already thinking about like how I make an environment for audience to lay down to like enjoy the space. And all things like every time I visit Venice, my phone die every time. So it's like smart to have a charger for them to charge at the same time to enjoy the video. Yeah, and I think one thing I appreciate like video art is like it's very different from cinema, because like cinema, the audience always trapped inside the black box, but in the gallery or in the museums, like always the audience have their freedom of their body to move the body. Yeah, and for me that's very important part is like the audience actually have their own body to witness the video, and it's their decision to stay or leave. I think it's very important for me. That's why also my film never have a like starting point or ending point. It's always like a loop, and the audience can join or leave anytime they want.
Yeah, and then something that we were discussing here, and I think only crossed my mind after the exhibition was finished regarding the position of the works and all of this, is that, of course, here, not only in Italy, but here in Italy, in Greece also have this tradition of like garden of sculpture, so the idea of the fragments and the antiquities, and then one day I came here to this space like, wow, looks like I don't know, many museums that have these big fragments, and here looks like a certain type of like fictional or an archaeological space where the audience can sit and where the audience can charge their phones or can sleep, and at the same time how this was integrated into the narrative of the main video. But I would love also if you could tell us a bit about, two things. How was this process of collaborating with this company in Taiwan that did the 3D pieces, because they all came from there, they were all fragmented, and then this company came here and they reinstalled everything here. And also, if you could tell us a bit about this process of making these short videos, this one you have in the stairs, and the other one you have in the back of the head, with something that caught my attention today, being a curator, and I saw some VIP people here visiting, etc. Some people, they stay in the main room, they watch the entire video, they go to the other rooms, they do like this, they see the face, they see something at the wall, and they go back, because they also have this speed of Venice. Some people, they didn't realize there was a cell phone behind, and some people, they don't get close to the Polaroid. But anyway, I was wondering how you had this idea, of course, of, how was this process of composing these other animations, because I know you did them quite fast. And here in Venice already, right? Yeah.
Yes, in fact, like the two videos you saw, like the smaller video was like finished maybe a week before, like just after I arrived in Venice. I changed everything because I work really fast. Yeah, so for the video back, like behind the head, it's like there's a cell phone and someone was like playing this kind of like cup trip or something. It's like a scam or something, and I think it's like playing a game with the audience. Like you want the audience to guess like where is the eye or something. And I think for me it's a very important metaphor, because like image making actually came from magic, actually came from tricks, and it's always like a tricks. So always there's nothing to play with. It's always like try to trick the audience. And for another piece, like from Entrance, is also, I think it's more like an introduction for the audience to realize like what I do, like puppetry, because you can see like the man in the green suit behind it doing this kind of puppetry, and you play with the window, like the mist or something, try to draw on the mist. Yeah, so I think in the end, it's like creating this pace for the audience to like enjoy, to going through the exhibition like slowly to enjoy the whole film. Yes. And the sculptures, yes. To be honest, I never did like sculptures so huge before. So the way I created this sculpture was actually I do modeling stuff on my computer, and since the video is about like skill, like there's always like big puppet controlling the small puppet, and the small puppet controlling another smaller puppet. So I feels like if I put some like really huge sculpture in the space, the audience somehow feels like they are a small puppet like sitting on a big hand or something. Yeah. So the process was like I do all the modeling on my computer, and there's an amazing company in Taiwan. They 3D print everything, and we ship it here. But since the gate is like super tiny, we have to cut it into small pieces and assemble in here. Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah, and then I think that, for example, if you think from the LED panel to the cell phone to the Polaroid to this other model of screen over there, I think we can talk a bit about the name of the exhibition, that is Screen Melancholy. So since the beginning also, I mean, we had this challenge of giving a title to the project, and at the same time, of course, due to some specific timings of how the Venice Biennale works, all the pavilions, all the nations need to share everything in advance. So it's not like, other projects that we did before in our respective careers where I could, 2 weeks before decide a title. But then in the middle of the process, since there was this idea of not having a single work and have other works, and I was at the time saying, hey, perhaps we should play with other formats of image, like something medium, something small, etc. Ethan came with the amazing idea of the Polaroid also. This word screen was always like this in my mind. But I think it was more than in English, just like everything that I do almost. It came in Portuguese, the word tela, that we use a lot talk about, like cell phone screen and other things. But at the same time, in Portuguese especially, we use the word janela, window. So it's a way to play not only with the window of the computer, but also the architectural window. And then all of these things were like around my brain. And then one day I remember that the word melancholy came, because I think that's something that calls my attention in Ifan's practice in general, from the first work to this new one, that I feel that the work has a very encyclopedic desire, which I totally identify as a human being and art historian, etc. So I think it's a very iconophilic work. I think Ifan, just like perhaps all of us here that, anyway, that take the decision to visit Venice in the preview, I think we're all in different ways addicted to images. But I think that not only images, I think his practice the works are always like trying to answer to different content and create links between them. Some more linear, other very non-linear, a bit data, a bit nonsense. But there's a certain like melting pot of references, of possibilities, of many layers of images and relations, etc., etc. Lots of games with words also. So all the time, instead of the word encyclopedic, the word melancholy came in the sense of how Freud, for example, wrote about melancholy, and how many artists tried to transform melancholy in an image, like Albrecht Dürer, for example, the famous German painter. This idea that you are there trying to study, to understand life, things, the universe, but at the same time, one life is not enough. There's always something that you're gonna miss. And of course, the knowledge, the big capital K, is bigger than all of us together here in this room. So I feel the puppets and this tutorial mode are always touching this. And I feel also that, of course, after we became friends and started hanging around together, etc., I feel this curiosity you have, that I think I also have in a different way, of course, is something that is contained in this idea of melancholy. So in a certain way, it's like all the screens in the project and this big melancholy around it. And then having this in mind, I took some notes here to ask you some specific things. I'd love to ask you less about the making of the work, but more about the poetics or the existential desire around the work. Because this work specifically, I've watched, 10 times during these days, after, of course, you corrected the color, etc., etc. And I think that there's lots of moments I keep thinking about death in this work. For example, the low poly model and this thing of like, I have style, kids like me, etc. But in a certain way, is it disappearing or not? There's also some moments that make reference to war, also to violence, this tank that appears, and it's AI, and you make this joke between, I'm so sorry, this is the only AI moment. So I was wondering, for example, if there's this idea of finitude, this idea of ending, this idea of death specifically, if you agree if it's something that in a certain way ghosts this narrative or not. Even, for example, as we were joking all the time, this soap opera moment between the eye and the organs, and they're always like in a family dinner discussing their relationship and try to be okay together. I feel that there are lots of moments when they seem to be battling against the idea of ending something,
Yeah, so I think definitely like death and fear is a very important part in this film. And actually, I think like making video itself is very connected to the idea of death, because most of video ends. Although it's a loop, it still has like a timeline. It's always like linear. So as an like director or artist, like when you're creating a video, you couldn't think about. You always think about how to end this video, and it's really connected about like how to end your life. Is quite similar for me. So I think in this film, it always like echo this kind of like topic, like how death, the fear of death, and how it's like also about like destination about human beings, because it talks about like noise, the pattern of future or something. So yeah, I think it's a very important element in my films. But in another way, I think like the character always talk this topic in the very like reckless manner, in the very like, how to say, black humor way. So I think the way I like to play with the audience is like sometimes he try to convey a very heavy topic like war or something, but immediately he like interrupt you like at a like 2 seconds after. And I think this kind of experience was actually quite similar to like scrolling. You know, you saw something horrible in the first scroll, and like 2 seconds after you saw something like very cheerful or something. Yeah, so I think for me making a film is this kind of game, like playing with the audience. Sometimes like something horrible happened, but 2 seconds after it's like something funny happened, and the audience kind of like confused, like should I be happy or should I be sad? And also like in the end, I think it's very important for me is like the character cries. Like think about because the tears is generated by AI, but we think about like is this tears like fake? How do you say like 这个是不是哭得不真诚呢？
Like, do I cry authentically? Is it authentic enough?
Yeah. Imagine like preparing opening speech. Like everybody feels like, wow, this speech is like so touching. But in the end, they say, oh, sorry, this speech was provided by Gemini or ChatGPT. Like this kind of situation, I really enjoy this kind of like writing a sorry letter to your family, but the letter was actually came from ChatGPT or something. So this kind of situation I enjoy a lot. Just like think about it.
It's all about the magic and the trick element with the audience. I think we can open for questions, and then I talk about the book later. Anyone has any question for Mr. Ifan? All right.
Yes, and due to the limited time, maybe we can have 2 to 3 at most questions.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
great.
Probably.
Okay.
Who will go first? The floor is open. Okay.
Hi, I have a couple of questions actually, but I'll keep it short. So technically I was wondering which type of engine did you use, and because you mentioned the motion capture suits, which are very unstable often, did you use AI for the motion capturing of the puppet, or for the story, or for which part exactly? I'll be interested. Yeah, that's for now.
Yeah, so the engine I'm using is called Unreal Engine. Yeah, it's from Epic. Yeah, and actually my previous work talks about Unreal Engine a lot. It's like how I love it and how I hate it at the same time. Yeah, and the way I do like motion capture is I actually use it quite traditional ways, like with a headset and 2 controllers. So it's without any AI without any AI solving. Yeah, but so. There are 2 parts of this film is use AI. One is going to happen in maybe 10 seconds or something. So it's like very obvious, the tank like running into the building. Another one is a tear. So the way like I use AI, the audience always knows, okay, this is AI, is this something fake or something? Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Hold on a second. No worries.
Yes, thank you. I have a question about the concept of the puppetry, because I think that people who have been making animations and playing with those engines the last years have been also very much enjoying this process, right, of like creating lights and life from just an engine, right? How do you think the concept of the puppet is being challenged nowadays, that like all these processes can be automated? Like who's becoming the puppet? Yeah, because I think that what I see in this work and also what I see about the sculptural aspect of it is that we can really still see this idea of like the human somehow, orchestrating the machine. But how do you see that being developed, and do you think it's also going to influence the way you think about the puppet or will produce puppets?
Yeah, I think I use the word puppet, but one thing like it's actually some audience told me is like the way puppetry works, you always see the like puppet master behind the puppet, and like for example, a puppet here, and I'll be like manipulating like this. But when I work, it's actually kind of reverse. I always work like facing the puppet. So for me, it's very important. It's like the puppet is not for like performing for other audience. It's like a tool for me to play with myself. So I often connect this kind of like practice with very like how to say, like childhood practice where like you playing with Lego or something. You always build a scene, always build mechanics, and you play the Lego with yourself. So it's for me, it's very personal things, like bringing a theater for yourself to rehearse or something. You know, so for me, although I use the word puppet, for me it's more like a toy or the rehearsal or something like I'm playing for myself. So the audience is actually someone like in third person, like having a look from the side, like what's happening. But I'm not performing for the audience while I do the performance. I don't think I answered your question.
So the very last question, who would like to have this opportunity? Okay, you got this.
Thank you. I will also try to keep it short. I just have one question about the puppet, because it has this, another question about the puppet. It has this like chalk body paint kind of texture, and I was always wondering what was the idea behind that.
Okay, yes. Yeah, so the way I model the puppet or 3D model came from like different models. Like for the head, I do like a really realistic 3D scanning of my own head. But for the body, I actually purchased like a body on the internet. So I assembled everything together to get this puppet. And for me, like using a skin tone puppet it's always have to deal with like very practical problems, like the whole, how to say, 恐怖谷怎么说?
Horrifying?
No, it's like something about value. What's the English term? This is like, it's between realistic and like fake, so it feels like something wrong. Thank you very much. Yeah, so the way I deal with this problem is like actually painting with a virtual plane. And in other hand, I think it's kind of a process of like, how to say, like possession or something. You turn yourself into another person, another look. So yeah, and I think it's part of the almost like ceremony or something. It's like into another person.
Okay, thanks for your questions. Just to finish, I thought it was also interesting to talk about our publication. So one idea that came during the process of working together is that, of course, I had the budget to do a publication related to the exhibition here, but then we thought it would be much cooler, instead of doing a publication only related to the show, to do something that talks about TFAM's practice. So this is our amazing book that he's going to show you guys. You can show the cover. That's a whole thing. Show the cover, man. The things that do like this. Then. Anyway, so we hired these amazing guys from Taiwan. They're not here, called Sample Animal. If you look at their Instagram, the work is amazing. They don't work only with visual arts, they also work with music, with pop culture in general. And we had this idea of, we didn't have this idea actually. I mean, we also hire another amazing human being that perhaps isn't here. I don't know if Xiaoba is here. She's not here. She's where's Xiaoba? Where's that? Over? No, not here. Anyway. But she edited this book. She runs a very interesting publishing company in Taiwan called DMP Editions, right? Xiaoba? Yeah. And then thinking together, we had this idea of like, okay, let's have info about the new work, but let's have an interview. So I interviewed Yifan. I did a text also in the end. We have the info about all the work he did until now. But the coolest part, I think, is that this idea that Xiaoba had of like having a series of keywords in the end. So we have a group of keywords. I mean, some Yifan suggested, most of them he suggested, other ones I came to, also other ones Xiaoba suggested. And then basically most of the texts are by Yifan, but I contributed with some of them. So basically through the keywords like windows, eyeballs, machinima, physical body, fingers, blah, we have a group of images from different works. So it becomes in a certain way like an atlas regarding to his practice. And also, I don't know, a publication that's quite enjoyable for the audience to see and even play with it. So it's not a heavy textual book. And then besides the publication, that is quite gorgeous actually, we also had this idea regarding the public programs of I mean, what could we do as a public programs? We didn't think it would make sense to do something like this all the time, like a seminar or a big talk or something that sounds very academic, in the bad way of academic. Because you know, university is the best. But anyway, you can understand what I'm trying to say. And then we thought it was more interesting to have a live program. And then by an accident also, I think it happened, the IFAN saw this amazing artist from South Korea, Anju Hong, and then she has one specific performance that she directs that we thought was very interesting to have here happening inside the pavilion, and at the same time creating a certain type of echo regarding their both practices. So we're really happy to have her here. Isu is the name of the performer that's going to perform the work in a few minutes. And then we thought also it would be nice, you know, to don't have everything, the public programs, the publication, focus on IFAN's practice, but also share the stage a bit. But yeah, I mean, as an introduction of this whole amazing experience, I think more or less that's it. Again, we're very thankful to have you all here. We know how these days in Venice they are hectic, so we feel very thankful for you guys choosing to be here with us. Again, Ifan, I have no words. Thanks for everything. I think we should also thank everybody at the Taipei Fine Arts Museum. I won't say names because I'm going to forget of someone. So you guys know who you are. You guys have been amazing. You guys have been the best professionals ever. So without you, this whole thing wouldn't exist. What do you want to say, my friend?
Thank you.
No words from me. Okay, so let's extend our sincere thanks to the artist, Mr. Li Yifan, and the curator, Mr. Raphael Fonseca, for the in-depth sharing. This brings to the closing of our afternoon program, and later the opening ceremony and also the press conference will commence at 6 o'clock. We sincerely invite you to join us later in the evening. Before then, shortly at 5, in the exhibition space, the opening performance will be presented by performance artist Anju Hong and also Isu Kim Lee, titled "She Seems Devastated When I Was Weeping with Joy." And so please welcome to the exhibition space and enjoy our performance. Thank you.
That's